Well, hello everyone. My name is Eduardo Spinheira. I'm a lecturer at Porto Business School and I also work as a management consultant and facilitator. My main goal is to leverage organizations on evolving and growing at a sustainable pace. You can find project management best practices, agile models, management 3.0 tools, and a couple of techniques and concepts I concocted myself on my toolset. Our talk today will focus on aligning Management 3.0 with responsible innovation. Before I start, I need to agree on a fundamental rule for this workshop, which is feel free to interrupt me at any point, send me any kind of questions. So don't worry about it. We are here to be interrupted. So let's begin. Responsible innovation, by definition, considers the role that new products, processes, or business models have in society. This means a responsible approach towards innovation involves creating change that positively impacts society and the environment. But I need to know a little bit more about you guys. So what about Management 3.0? What is it? Before we delve in, let me know your answers to the following question in Mentimeters. So let me just write upon here and just share my screen so that I can see what you think or what you know about Management 3.0. I'll give you a couple of minutes to answer. I hope you are comfortable with Mentimeter so that you can use it at any given point. Okay, we've got a newbie so far. Maybe the rest are a little bit more shy. I'll wait a little longer. Well, if I have no more inputs, I'll assume that most people will be newbies. So in this case, let's consider how to present this. So to kind of level the playing field and make sure that we are all in the same page, I'm going to explain and demonstrate what it's all about. So for many organizations, a common practice is that they are managed a little bit like machines. So they consider something like this. So they count on a specific machine, and at that point, they assume that improving the whole requires monitoring, repairing, and replacing the parts as if it was that said machine. Now, this kind of management 1.0 has worked for many years with no kind of problems, or at least not many felt problems. But along the way, we kind of evolved to management 2.0, kind of organization that says that we are thinking about people first, or maybe for the first time. So we started out with something like this. So everyone recognizes that people are the most valuable assets, and that the managers must become servant leaders. But at the same time, managers prefer to stick to the hierarchy. So one of these examples is that all the managers consider themselves as kind of coaches, as if they were supposed to know everyone's job and be always ready to answer any kind of question, either technical or not, regarding any role that are being performed on his team. So as you can see, most times this isn't sustainable. So along the way, slowly we started to have another kind of model. And this was the moment that the Management 3.0 was created. One of the best analogies that we can have is a little bit like a city. So in a city, you are the one responsible for taking care of your house, but you are connected to other houses and other people. And within the city, you have a couple of rules, right? So as long as you allow the community to benefit from your work, you can do whatever you want, right? Okay, but maybe the city isn't the best example, so let me show you another one. So it's a little bit like being a gardener. So when we are a garden, it is one of my favorite metaphors. Everyone acts as a manager, not just for themselves, but also for other people. So what you have is making sure that we are taking care of each other and making sure that we create the conditions for everyone to grow. Or in another example, it's a little bit like driving. So if you have a driving license, you are aware of all the rules that you need to drive around the city, right? Or go in vacations or whatever. But at any given point, you can go to whatever you want. The only condition that you have is to comply with the rules that were defined to make sure that you go to the best place as you want, but complying with the rules so that everyone else knows a little bit about what you're saying or what you're going to do. For instance, you are going to signal every time that you make a turn. You know that here in Portugal, the roundabouts are done by the right. So all of those rules are the rules that make sure that everyone can do whatever they want, but we have some kind of way of dealing with the chaos of having a lot of people without the perfect information about where everyone is going, right? So it's a little bit like talking about self-organization, and Management 3.0 is exactly about self-management and self-organization. Am I making myself clear? If not, as I said before, feel free to raise your hand and interrupt me at any given moment. So, to make sure that we create these conditions for the Management 3.0, we created a kind of a framework. So, for that framework, what they did was they created kind of an ever-changing collection of tools and gains and practices to help any worker manage the organization. Yes, I really stress the any worker manage the organization because we all act as managers. Either we accept it or not, everyone is working towards a goal that is shared by everyone. So it is divided on two different stepping stones and six perspectives. So what we've got is we have the management and leadership and the complexity thinking. And then we continue with energize people, empower teams, align constraints, develop competence, grow structure, and improve everything. So what we've got is a little bit like this. So it's kind of an overview of what you've got. Let me just show you a slide so that we can have an overview of everything. So in this case, what we've got is this. As I said, two stepping stones and six perspectives. For every perspective, we have a specific goal. For instance, for energized people, people are the most essential parts of an organization, and any kind of manager must do all they can to create the conditions and keep people active, creative, and motivated. For the empower team, since we consider that teams can self-organize, And this requires empowerment, authorization, and trust from management. For the aligned constraints, what we want is to make sure that the self-organization can lead to anything. So what we want is to have some kind of protection and shared resources and give people a clear purpose and define goals. When we talk about develop competence, usually we can talk about training, we can talk about any kind of way of making sure that teams achieve their goals. So we are always talking about creating conditions for the teams to work, create conditions for everyone to stand out as they want, can create the conditions for everyone to become what they want. For the growth structure, it is making sure that they have the holistic point of view. They understand how the structures can work and how they can integrate with the other teams. And last but not least, improve everything, which is one of my favorite ones, which is focused on making sure that we have to improve continuously to defer failure as long as possible and have those moments that we stop to think about what we are doing and how we can change it all. So we can do a kind of a demonstration for instance, the complexity thinking. So for the complexity thinking, since we all assume that we live in a complex world, and I think we can all agree on this. So how do we cope with this? How do we deal with this ever-changing life? How do we deal with the pandemic? How do we deal with the complexity of our daily challenges? Well, to do this, we have a kind of a standard exercise. I can use one of the most common ones. So, if you have ever done an interview with a team building or something like that, you realize that usually they do at best a little bit like this. So what we've got so far is uh, on the simulated world war, something has so it has just occurred, and you have 11 people that find themselves the only people left on the earth. So they managed to all make it to a bunker, and at that moment, they realize that if three of them wish to survive for many years, seven of them have to leave soon because, well, you don't have enough resources. So it is kind of those dilemmas that we all have, right? So if you all stay, you will only live for a maximum of 2 years. The bunker has the following facilities, the normal facilities like sewer system, water, seeds, some clothes, and a few books, some medical facilities, but no operating material, and the greenhouse. So you can grow something. Their profiles are scientists, priests, a married drug addict couple, a single pregnant woman with a 5-year-old girl, an army officer who has a mental instability, and an elderly woman, a disabled person, a lawyer, a gallbladder, and a doctor. So what we've got to do in this moment is to decide who is going to live. So to do this, I'm going to let you think a little bit about this exercise. I'm going to give you between 2 to 3 minutes to go through this and try to process all this information. I'm going just to put some music just to for everyone's enjoyment. And at the end of the time, I'm going to go for the Mentimeter and I'm going to ask who you have selected. Okay? So let's go for it. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit more time. And by the way, if you have any doubts regarding what's a dole bludger, it's someone that chooses to receive just unemployment uh, benefits instead of working. Okay, so let's just give you a little bit more, probably 2 minutes, and afterwards we'll continue. So the time is almost finishing. I hope you all have decided what to do. So I'm going to change for the Mentimeter so that you can vote on who you decided that should live. So give me just a second. So please vote on who survives. Okay, we have one vote already. Let's wait a little bit more for the rest. Okay. Since the submission takes a little bit of time, I'm going to wait a little bit more so that we can analyze our answers so far. Well, if you are having some kind of trouble using the platform, you just have to go to the link to www.menti.com and use the code 59364518. Afterwards, you can vote on who survived in this example. Wait a little bit more just to make sure that everyone can participate. Well, I'm afraid everyone else seems to be a little bit shy about sharing who they want to survive or not. So I'm going to continue. So in this case, what we had was to take a very big decision, isn't it? We have to decide who is going to survive in a awful condition. So you've just decided who you are going to kill. So I gave you a group of 11 people and told you that you need to decide exactly who will survive. And if we are doing this in a classroom, I would ask why and understand all the ethical problems and challenges that you went through to decide who you're going to pick. Well, but remember, we're talking here about responsible innovation, right? We're talking about making sure that we understand and that we are aware that we should do and have a positive impact on everything that we do for processes, for business models, for new products, whatever. Do you think that you were thinking about that? Was this positive? Do you like the impact that you have? Most people, when they are dealt with complexity, they just use a technique called Reductionism. It is a fancy word to say that we kind of reduce the complexity of the data or the phenomena to simple terms. So I just told you, okay, I want you to think about who is going to survive. And I've seen all kinds of judgment techniques. Some people decide that they could have a vote, or they try to understand. And I think that most people did here was, okay, since I have a single pregnant woman and I have a 5-year-old girl, I'm not going to let a child die. So that one is a given. And since her mother is pregnant, let's try our best to make sure that everything goes well. But to do this, we need a physician, we need a doctor, so that she can give birth with not a lot of problems, not a lot of trouble. Or maybe even add the scientist to the mix, so that we have the best conditions to survive as long as possible, right? But if you are doing that, you are just assuming that we are all defined by our rules. You are assuming that this is the most important part that we should focus. And I know that I didn't give you enough time, nor did I give you enough information about the problem. But that's our reality, isn't it? Most of the times we are not given enough information, but we still have to make decisions. And when we're talking about this kind of responsibility, this kind of trouble, well, in this case, I wish you already had a couple of guidelines to deal with this. Because when we apply reductionism, the problem is that the simplifications sometimes hides a lot of problems. For instance, along the way, we all relied on instruction instead of communication. We have manuals for almost everything. If you go to the IKEA or any kind of store, most products give you a manual either to build or to understand how you can operate it, right? But have you ever defined or followed a process and something went wrong? Well, I can give you an example of following blindly a process. Okay, so I'm going to use here an example with a video, so please feel free to interrupt me or share any kind of opinion or any kind of trouble if you don't see the video. So I hope that right now you're seeing the video. So I'm going to put it on play.
You're not making any sense. Sorry, you ruined it on purpose. He knows how to make one.
What's up, the internet? You know what? I'm hungry. I could really go for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Do you guys think you can write down some instructions and teach me how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Yeah.
Then do it.
I knew we were gonna do this. I heard Dad talking to Mom.
Choke yourself on my hand. Sometimes they do what you tell them.
Dad, I'm done.
Step 1. Get 2 pieces of bread out. Got 'em. Get a butter knife and get some PB. Take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
No, Dad, with the peanut butter.
I'm just doing what it says. It says take 1 piece of bread, spread it around with the butter knife.
As I said, he is following blindly the process that was defined, right?
Hold on.
Get some jelly, rub it on the other half of the bread.
No, Dad, open the jelly.
Well, it doesn't say to do that. Put the breads together on top of each other. Take a big bite. This doesn't taste like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Fail.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I had to make it extremely specific.
Oh, good. I'm starving. Take 2 pieces of white bread out of the bag. Take the lid off the jar of peanut butter. Get a butter knife and stick it inside of the peanut butter jar. With the knife, scoop a bit of peanut butter out
A bit, that means like a lot.
A bit means a lot?
In my world.
Spread your scoop of peanut butter onto 1 of your pieces of bread with the knife. All right. There we go.
You're doing better than before, though.
Open the jelly jar. Squeeze it onto the other piece of bread.
Nope.
Done. Closer. Get 2 pieces bread. Get some peanut butter. Take the peanut butter knife. Open the peanut butter. Put the knife in the PB. Get some jelly. Open the jelly.
No.
Squirt the jelly onto the bread.
You're supposed to...
Take the butter knife with the peanut butter on it. Wipe it all over the piece of bread that's blank. Take the butter knife, rub the jelly all over the piece of bread.
Oh, he's doing better. Oh.
It says all over. Put the 2 pieces on top of each other.
This isn't how I meant.
Take 2 pieces of white bread out of the bag. Take the lid off the jar of peanut butter. Get a butter knife and stick it inside of the peanut butter jar. With the knife, scoop some of the peanut butter out of the inside of the jar. Spread your scoop of peanut butter onto 1 of your pieces of bread with the knife.
No.
Squeeze some jelly onto the other piece of bread. Spread the jelly on the bread with the butter knife. Put your 2 pieces of bread peanut butter and jelly sides together. Done. Get 2 pieces of bread. Get some peanut butter. Get some jelly. Open the peanut butter. Get a butter knife. Put the butter knife in the peanut butter. Take the butter knife out of the peanut butter.
You did it wrong. No.
Take 1 piece of bread and take the butter knife that has the peanut butter on it and spread it all over the top of the piece of bread.
Dad,
That's the top.
I mean the sides.
Squirt some on another piece of bread. Take the butter knife, rub it all over the top of the piece of bread.
I quit. You're not making any sense. Sorry, ruined it on purpose. He knows how to make one. I know.
Haven't you seen a couple of reactions like this? Maybe you were even the person reacting like this. This can happen, and this happens a lot, doesn't it?
Evan, it's the joke. It's the game that we're playing. Oh.
Do you know how to eat a piece of bread? You want to take your sandwich with you?
Or maybe we didn't have exactly this reaction,
Looks like a
but something close to this.
I'm glad I made that for you.
Can I have safe one with it?
Yeah, go take that one to mommy.
Okay. I edited a bit.
Take 2 pieces of white bread. Take the lid off the jar of peanut butter. Get a butter knife and stick it inside of the peanut butter jar. With the knife, scoop some of the peanut butter out of the inside of the jar. Spread your scoop of peanut butter onto the face of one of your pieces of bread with the knife. Squeeze some jelly onto the other piece of bread. Spread the jelly on the bread with the butter knife. Put your 2 pieces of bread, peanut butter and jelly sides together. Done. Not the best,
Well, you made it.
but
so
I think it qualifies.
So.
That's a win.
Woohoo!
Well, Evan.
So, as you can see, what you have is that if you follow blindly an instruction, although this is for purposes only, what happens is that you're going to have many of these problems because things don't work exactly as you wanted. You can try your best to foresee every kind of scenario, but most of the times there are a couple of things that are going to go wrong. Since we rely so much in instruction, it's because we are assuming that everyone will understand that given instruction with no worries and no doubts about it. What we have so far is that we are not realizing that an organization is a complex adaptative system. So it consists of parts, people in this case, that form a system, an organization, which has complex behavior. At the same time, it keeps adapting to a changing environment. So it's the best combination or the best way of trying to have an analogy for an organization is to talk about immune systems or the internet or countries or gardens or cities or beehives or brains or even bacteria. They are all complex adaptive systems. Adaptive systems. There are no laws for dealing with change or uncertainty and complexity. The best we can do is to follow 8 guidelines. So let's go through all of them. So what we have is we should address complexity with complexity. So let me just go through all of them with you guys. So what we can do is to address complexity with complexity. The brain is a little bit more complex than any other tool. So to make sense of a complex thing, You can use storytelling or metaphors or visuals. The second guideline is to use a diversity of perspectives. I know that on the exercise that I gave you, I made sure that you were working alone. But in a normal situation, you will have more people. And accepting the diversity of perspectives will be a win-win for you to combine multiple, even incorrect views that will often result in a much better observation. For the third guideline, you should assume subjectivity and co-evolution. So when cause and effect are interdependent, you can resolve a situation by focusing on something else. The fourth guideline, steal and tweak. We usually think of innovation as inventing new things, but we may be wiser to think of it as recombining old ones. The fifth, expect dependence on context. Be skeptical because what worked in the past or others is not guaranteed to work for you now. The sixth, anticipate, explore, and adapt. You can probe a situation by imagining improvements, anticipate, or trying things to explore and responding to change, adapt. So if you consider all of this and add the seventh, the shorten the feedback cycle, so that you can have higher extinction rates in changing environments and iterate faster, and add on top of that the eighth, the keep your options open, now you are ready to really tackle a complexity exercise. And we can even try to think about what to do for that bunker situation. So are you ready for that? Can we try again what we had? So the exercise was this one. And I'm going to give you, once again, a little bit of time to think about what could we do to deal with this complex problem. I'm going to give you, let me check. Okay, we are going to have 3 minutes, okay? Sorry, I had a problem here with the screen sharing. Let me just make sure that you have, again, access to the exercise. So in this case, what can you do? So let me share again our Mentimeter and try to see so that you can submit your new answers to know who survived this time. While we wait, we can even go through all the complexity guidelines and play a little bit about what we can do with this. So when we talk about the guidelines, what we are saying is that we should assume that we can work it out a little bit more instead of just killing everyone that wanted to survive at a given point. So when we say that we have to address complexity with complexity, we mean that in this case, we shouldn't try to go for any kind of shortcuts. We should really understand the situation and try to see what to do. Now, if you were working in a group, maybe some of you could think of a shortcut like, okay, let's vote who will survive. But that's not what we should do, is it? If we want to do something more responsible and make sure that we guarantee a positive impact, in this case, instead of going for a simplified solution, we should think, okay, what can we do with this? Well, maybe everyone should survive. Everyone should have that opportunity to survive in this case. So what we want to do is to consider that if everyone survives, what do we have to do to make sure that that happens? Well, maybe the situation will be that they will all go into the bunker and they create their own set of rules. They create the conditions to make sure that they all survive. Because by doing that, you are making sure that you don't just rely on the description of everyone and you have a grasp of what's happening. You can even change your solution if you want after 3 months or after 1 week or after 1 year. It's up to you. But after that time, you'll have more insight to what to do. It is the same thing with user diversity of perspectives. If you're doing something that you consider that is really hard, one of the best things that you can do is ask someone else. You want that diversity of perspectives. I can even go further. There is an expression that states that the map isn't the territory, which means that the perception isn't the reality. So every time we're talking about the perception, we're not talking about reality. It's a way of modeling, it's a way of understanding, it's a way of perceiving the reality, right? But if you have a lot of different perspectives, even though some of them will be wrong, or even though all of them are wrong, when you join them together, when you fuse them together, you'll have a good sense of the reality, or at least a more enriched way of looking at the reality. So when you say that you should assume subjectivity and coevolution, what we are saying is that first, you don't have enough information. The fact that you say that one of the persons is a doctor, it doesn't mean that he is a doctor that will be useful for this. Maybe he's just a dermatologist, or maybe he's a surgeon. It will be completely different, isn't it? The outcome of having different doctors will have a different output afterwards. So you should assume subjectivity and you should assume coevolution, because you can consider that after a while, since we know that that woman is pregnant and she will be in labor in I don't know how many time, you can make sure that everyone is prepared to deal with the situation, or at least as prepared as they can be, so they could co-evolve to deal with the challenge that they were given. The same thing with still and weak. They can think about situations they've heard, think about situations they have seen before on other contexts, and try to adapt to their situation. And we can go on with expect dependence on context. When you enter in the bunker, a lot of different things can happen. So you should always consider that within that context, maybe you'll have more things or less things. Maybe the sewer will be a big problem, or maybe they have the conditions to survive a lot more than they thought. It is completely up to them to define the rules with information they are given. They should anticipate, explore, adapt, and iterate as quick as possible so that they can adapt to the situation. And at the end, make sure that they keep their options open. Because I'm sure that if you are in a bunker with 11 people, with so many conditions, and I think that we have a light version of being kind of not cast away, but separated from a lot of people. We were given the conditions to or the ultimatum to stay at home or try to do as many things as possible from within your house. We saw all the all the problems that arose from that, right? So imagine having that in a bunker. Imagine having that after knowing that probably you are the only 11 people in the world that survives. So you're going to have a lot of different situations, a lot of different problems, and even a lot of different solutions that can come up along the way. So this is a way of dealing with complexity. That's why when we talk about responsible innovation, we always talk about the way we deal, considering all the impacts, considering all the outputs, considering all the inputs from everyone. So it is our way of dealing with something as strange as our world nowadays, right? Now, I said that we have 2 stepping stones and 6 perspectives. So I already give you a gist or a kind of a tour for one of the stepping stones, which is complexity thinking. Let's talk a little bit about motivation for the energized people, which is one of the perspectives. So when we talk about motivation, usually we are talking about making sure that we have, once again, the right conditions for people to be motivated, right? That seems fair. But how do we motivate people? How can we improve engagement? Well, technically, we cannot make people feel motivated or engaged, but we can certainly set up the right conditions to maximize the probability of it happening, even though success is never sure, right? So what we had is that for Management 3.0, there was a model created. The model is called Shame Frogs. The model deals specifically with motivation in the context of the work life. It consists of 10 motivators that are either intrinsic, extrinsic, or a little bit of both. So let's go through all of them. Let me just share here the PowerPoint. And by the way, thank you for the people who submitted that they realized that everyone would survive on the next round. So thank you for that. So afterwards, we will have the 10 motivators. So let's go through all of them. So first one, curiosity. The workers have plenty of things to investigate and to think about. Honor. Workers feel proud that their values are reflected in how they work. Mastery. The work challenges people's competence, but it is within their abilities. Freedom. People are independent of others with their work and responsibilities. Power. There's enough room for workers to influence what happens around them. Acceptance. Colleagues approve of what people do and who they are. Order. Workers have enough rules and policies for a stable environment. Relatedness. People have good social contacts with the others in their work. Status. People have a good position and are recognized by their colleagues. Goal. The people's purpose in life is reflected in the work that they do. So we have 10 motivators. And I'm going to ask you guys to think about how you would order them out. So what we are going to do is to define which motivators are more important to you. So you are going to order them from 1 to 10, okay? And then afterwards we'll go on Mentimeter and see the results. So once again, a little bit of music just for your enjoyment, and let's see if you can deal with this, with the 10 motivators. So okay, I hope you had enough time to go through all of this. So I asked you guys to think about an order for all these motivators. I can give you a couple of examples of tips and problems that I have while using this technique. So some people are really keen on defining the top 5 and make sure that they divide the top 5 from the bottom 5 motivators, just to make sure that afterwards they can, okay, this is more important, these are more important than these ones. But afterwards, sometimes they are really quick on deciding which are the top ones, or deciding by relative way which is more important than the other. But at a given point, they have troubles with some of them that, even though they are not similar, they can be on the same way scale that they will have with another one. So they are quick on dividing top 5 and bottom 5, but afterwards, sometimes it gets a little bit more tricky. So I have the Mentimeter once again, just to see how you go about the motivators. Let me just share here. So that you can submit. Only submit after filling in all the 10 motivators, okay? It takes a little bit of time, but it is worth it. Let's wait a little bit more to see if you have any kind of results. And by the way, first and foremost, this isn't a perfect model. It's a proxy to achieve some insight into people's motivations. So it is a responsible way to once again understand, or at least try to understand people, and even understand ourselves, so that our decisions toward products and processes and business models accommodate this information. It is important for us to realize that any kind of model has their flaws. But for instance, since we have already one submission, I can see that whoever submitted values more the curiosity and mastery and order and acceptance and goal. So these are the top 5. And it is interesting that the 10th is status, which means that at this moment he doesn't care about status, but he's more keen on making sure that he has conditions to investigate and have plenty of things to do that, and being challenged on his competence, even though it is still within his abilities. So what we see here is that if I want to deal with this person or deal with a group that has these kind of values, it will be important for me to make sure that I create those conditions. It is my way of using a small exercise and guarantee a positive impact, or at least be closer to guaranteeing a positive impact on the processes or business models or whatever. In this case, since we are talking about a company, we are talking about a group, we are talking about an institution of any kind, we should be responsible for doing this. So when we are talking about motivation, as I said before, we can't guarantee that people are motivated, but we can guarantee that we create the conditions, we create the forums for people to be heard. We create the conditions to try to understand what's happening and make sure that with that information we can have better decisions. Where we can do this with a lot of different techniques, but as you can see, most of the exercises focus on one thing: trying to understand what's happening and having a technique, a guideline, or whatever, sort through the challenge that we have. When we're talking about team management, one of the main problems, as we said, is making sure that people are motivated enough. Because I don't know about you, but I'm aware that most people who aren't motivated, sooner or later they are going to leave that role, that position, that company. And that, if you have any kind of doubts, is always the fault of the team leader. And it is always the fault of the team leader because he's the one responsible for creating the conditions for that. It is the same thing for a government. It is the same thing for a city hall. They are responsible for something. They were elected to do something, or they were appointed to do something, or they were promoted to do something. But the responsibility is for everyone else. It's to create the conditions for people to work, to grow, and to be happy with it. Now, when we talk about these kinds of things, you have much more exercises that we can go through, but we have to just understand that most of us are just change managers. Maybe we are aware of that, maybe we are not, but maybe using these tools, we get a clear picture of what we are doing, and we have a clear picture of what's the impact of what we're doing. Management 3.0 was forged with responsible innovation in mind. Responsible innovation starts with a mindset, our mindset. Management 3.0 lets us understand how to approach our challenges, and we become more open, more positive, and respectful. It isn't a silver bullet. It is just a way of thinking. It is a way of having more tools to tackle the challenges that we all have. Well, I'm not going to spend all my time, but don't worry. I'm very easy to contact if you have any kind of doubts. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. I hope you liked it. And feel free to connect me on any kind of social network or ping me for any kind of thing that you think that I can be helpful. One of the advantages of having such an awkward name like Eduardo Pinheira is that I'm really easy to find. So feel free to do it. And thank you for staying there. See you. Bye.